welcome to a bolster session. So I love using a bolster not only for your more restorative postures, obviously, but also in a more vigorous practice. So today I'm going to do a little bit of both, and this will be a 30-minute class. So here we go. So the bolster literally is a supporting mechanism used to support us. And I remember when I very first used a bolster, it was at a class at Shanti Shala Yoga in New Orleans, holler, Natalie Croy. And it was a restorative class, and we did this posture. So I'm going to begin with this posture. It changed my life. You take your right hip and you're going to press it right up against the bolster. And you kind of really scooch, scooch, scooch. You want to get nice and close. And take your fingertips on either side and Stevie Wonder your way down. So you want to sway, 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 sway. Get long, sway some more, get long, sway some more. And eventually it's a twist. So this is a really, really nice twist. It's gentle. It's good for first thing. I also highly recommend staying here longer for the sake of the class. In this at-home format, we're just going to breeze through it. So you'll do it on one side, press yourself up, and do this nifty little can-can move where you open the legs and shift to the other side, and get the bolster nice and close, fingertip, fingertip, and sway. So the idea is that you're getting the chest, the torso, to lengthen over the bolster and eventually coming here. So if the full twist feels appropriate, that would be with the head facing in the opposite direction of the knees. Wonderful. If it feels like too much, if the breath is inhibited, by all means, just keep the gaze on the same side of the knees. And eventually you might notice as you practice more that that full twist will feel more available. And then pressing back up into seat, and this time you're going to spill over the bolster. So you'll take your legs wide around it, and I like to lift it up. So clearly I use it one way more, and this way less, but this way it's a little higher, and I can press the bolster into my sternum and get a bit of a forward bend. So I'm pulling the bolster against my chest, so it's actually pressing this rounded sort of C-like shape. We call it the turtle shell, the turtle back. And excite your toes, have them excited to be a part of the shape, and then press the tops of the thighs down, and tops of the calves, and the backs of the heels. And what's neat about this this platform here is you could just pause me whenever you want to linger for a little longer, and then coming on up. So then we're going to squeeze the bolster a little further forward, just to come roll over the knees, and then you're going to take the bolster back. So between the legs, between the thighs, and this is hands and knees. So we're going to go through cat-cow, and I want you to be able to squeeze the bolster with your knees. So on your inhale, we're going to tuck the toes, allowing the femur bones to spread wide, allowing the chest to open up and the gaze to sweep up, the nose lifts. And then exhale, curl and round the spine. So in this version, you're going to squeeze the bolster, and it feels amazing. And again, on the inhale, so your nose is coming up, your sits bones are lifting up, but could you keep your gaze sort of softly down the bridge of the nose so that the muscles of the face are relaxed? And then rounding the spine again, squeeze the bolster. You'll surprise yourself at how much you can squeeze. Let's do two more. Micro bend the elbows, spread the fingertips wider. Notice where you're weight bearing in your arms and your hands. Can you extend some of that weight out into the knuckles, maybe even into the fingertips, so that the wrists can have some reprieve? And last one here. And squeezing the bolster here. So then pressing back for downward dog. And so sometimes the bolster will just be right there for your forehead, which is super nice. And then experience some cat-cow just in your hips. So you can soft bend the knees and lift the sits bones up away from the heels and round the sits bones down toward the heels. And just do that a couple of times. As the sits bones lift up, you imagine that they're connected to some helium balloons and they're floating up away from the heels, but the heels themselves are grounding down, and particularly the outer edge of the heels. Imagine that the outer edges of the heels are grounding down and that the inner edges of the heels are reaching back, back, back. And then slowly lowering the knees. We'll take the bolster here and bring it forward. You're going to cross it in the front, and then we're going to take the right foot to the bolster, and you're going to start doing a little ebb and flow here. So you're going to press forward and send the hips back, and pressing forward and sending the hips back. So it's a little tease and a hamstring slide and the crescent lunge. So we'll settle in forward. And then deciding on what feels better for you. You could tuck the back toes or you could untuck them, either which way. I like them tucked because it feels a bit more stable. As we're lifting up, imagine that your pubic bone is coming with. So it's not just the sternum lifting, but the pubic bone is lifting and the shoulder blades are sliding underneath the heart. Perhaps a little wiggle as you release the shoulders away from the ears. And try and have your pinky fingers being the longest ones of all. And then exhale, let's pull it back into the hamstring slide. So here, you can start to release your leg forward, shimmy the bolster a little bit back, and now the bolster, you're pressing your heel against the bolster. There's traction here as you reach the back of the right hip up and back, and press the heel forward. Draw the toes up and back. And keep your chest lifted. So oftentimes we're wanting to like collapse here, but let's see if we can lift the chest. Have the sternum reaching straight forward. And as the nose starts to lift up, keep the gaze slightly down the bridge of the nose. And soften between the teeth and the gums. And then we'll slide on over to the other side. So taking the left foot and just dance between the two shapes at first. And it can be a little, you can just do like so, or it could be a lot. All the way forward, all the way back. Noticing your breath, noticing if one of these shapes feels more available and the other shape feels a little more stuck. And again, we're just noticing, so it's without judgment. Go ahead and sink forward, tucking the back toes, because that's what I did on the other side, to take this air of crescent lunge. So the shoulder blades slide under the heart to boost it up. The pinky fingers are the longest, and there's an external rotation in the upper arm bones, allowing the pinkies to spiral towards one another and up. And the pubic bone is also lifting up. So that keeps the whole pelvis lifted. It keeps the abdominal wall engaged, and it also keeps the front of the right hip flexor from just pow. There keeps some engagement here, a little resistance, and then releasing the fingertips down. So here, we're gonna take downward dog with our hands on the bolster. Like, why not? It's not quite as stable, but it sure is like a breath of fresh air. Start to walk the feet forward towards the bolster. And inhale, take a long spine. On exhale, round and release it down. So you can simply bind the fingertips behind the back and just dangle your head down. And switch the crossing of the fingers. Feels so good to take a forward fold. So again, great time to pause me and do your thing. When you're ready to come back, take the long spine again, and you're gonna slide the bolster between your calf muscles. So it might mean you need to lift it up off the ground, depending upon the size of your bolster. And you might have to do it on the wide setting. So I'm gonna do it on the wide setting, and you'll feel it feels really good already. Your legs are kind of activated as they squeeze against the bolster. And then just sweep the arms out to the side as you come up to standing. On your exhale, you're going to take chair or Utkatasana. So it might look like I'm giving weight to the bolster in my bum, but I'm not. But what's cool is that the squeezing of the bolster helps to stabilize the shape, makes it feel like you could be here for quite some time. And on your exhale, you come up to standing. Take an inhale and slide the shoulder blades underneath the heart again. That echo of a back bend comes from the boosting of the chest upward. And the pubic bone also lifts to keep the front of the hip flexors lengthening, to keep the low back lengthening. And then exhaling, simple mountain pose. And just squeeze the bolster tactilely between the calves. Just a couple breaths to tune in, noticing our arches and our dome. So the arches of the feet, followed by the pelvic floor, followed by the diaphragm. And we'll add the heart in there, slide the heart right above the diaphragm, the roof of the mouth, and then the crown of the head. So getting all of our dome shapes stacked. And then take a breath, see if you can breathe space between them. Imagine that the crown of your head is being lifted up, the heels are sinking down, and all the vertebrae are getting some more space. So you soften the jaw, flutter the eyes open, and then we'll again take chair. So you sink into Utkatasana and just let the bolster slide down. Now you're going to let the bolster release all the way to the floor. So sliding it back just a hair, we'll experience this one. So the teaser comes into play, and if this doesn't feel accessible, you can always go here. Embrace the ideas that the belly is coming back towards the midline, and any variety. You could get kind of playful here, you know, whatever you want to do for a little abdominal spice, and then slowly coming back. So release the arms out to the sides. I like to go cactus arms with this one, and oh my gosh, I love this posture. So it's kind of like a shoulder stand. It's a super supported shoulder stand. Viparita Karani is the Sanskrit term, and usually you'd be using your hands to help foster the lift of the low back, but right now the bolster is doing the job of that, and it's coming up underneath the shoulder blades for some additional support. So this is the dreamiest posture. Now I could stay here for forever, but playing with the pointing and flexing of the feet, just to feel the fronts and the back sides with legs, to feel the opening of the chest, and this amazing part of the back that often gets stuck. And then giving a little lift to the hips, to then slowly rocking yourself back up into an abdominal moment, whatever your abdominal moment of choice is going to be. And then you can settle the soles of the feet here, and then pivoting on the elbows and the knees, coming into a forward bend. So allow the heels to spread a little wider than the toes. You get a little internal rotation on the legs here, and then bending into one knee and the other, just lengthening out the sits bones away from their respective heels. And then go ahead and bind the 10 fingers behind the back again. So this time, if you go to ring it out, which is releasing the palms forward, keeping that 10-finger bind as is, but you just flip the palms and allow the hands to settle down towards the floor. And then you might notice that that action has the ears, or the shoulders coming up to the ears. So you slide the shoulder blades away from the ears. Feel the back of the neck grow super duper long. And then switch the crossing of the fingers just for integrity of the balance. And again, flip the palms if that felt good or inviting to you. And feeling the front of the chest opening. So much breath comes in. And then release the 10-finger bind. Inhale, take that lengthening spine, and then exhaling to fold. So you can just take the toes and heels back about hips distance, and then slowly bring it all the way up to standing. Again, we're going to melt down. So melting down, 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 onto the bolster. We'll do this one once more. As you extend the toes, maybe you play with it a little bit. And slowly lowering the back body to the world's greatest posture. I think I say that a lot about all kinds of postures, but this truly is one of the best. I'm just noticing where the breath travels here. Noticing how the breath travels. Notice where your feet want to be. So some of us, the feet are going to want to be far more forward. Some of us, the knees are going to be bent. Just notice in perspective of the hips, where are the heels? Can we stack the heels right above the hips? Gives this sort of zero gravity sensation for a moment. And then slowly bringing the heels towards the floor overhead and rocking yourselves back up. For that abdominal moment, taking it into a spilling over forward fold. Lengthening for a long spine. And exhaling to release. So from here, I'm going to bring the knees back down to the floor. I'm going to take your bolster and lift it the shorter or the skinnier way, sort of, if you will. And you're going to squeeze this bolster between the legs. You're going to inhale the right arm up. And exhale, taking it down. So this is Ustrasana, the camel's pose. And the left arm and taking it down and finding your heel. If the heels don't feel accessible, you can always do the toe tuck version. And all the same principles apply for the back bend. So the shoulder blades are up underneath the heart, boosting. There's more of an upward trajectory to this posture than a backward. It's like so far up that it goes back. That's the result. And you're squeezing the bolster between the thighs, lifting the pubic bone up towards the sky or the sternum, and hands to the low back to return up. And then you're just going to round your spine forward. So you can just round it over the bolster. And it's, I don't really know what this is. It's like a supported rabbit. So we're not going to do the full rabbit. We're just going to round over the bolster and give ourselves a second to recoup. Right now I'm noticing my heart space, my sternum is pressing into the bolster. So the deeper the breath, the more the breath gets like pressed against the inside of the lungs and feels like the rib cage. It's a really cool sensation. So always using the bolster for its tactile nature, and take your mind's eye into the space where your body is connecting with the bolster and really just feel into it. So the idea through all of this physical practice is that we're tuning into our feeling sensations. We're trying to become more connected to the ability to feel. And that is one of the coolest parts about the yoga practice. It's becoming more in tune with the ability to feel. And slowly coming up. So we'll do another round of the back bend. And what I mean by upward to go back is literally upward to go back. So you lift up, 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 up. So the threshold of up gets to me for about here, and then it starts going backwards. But I'm still lifting up. I'm still lifting up. I'm still lifting up, 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 up. Squeeze in a bolster. Noticing the breath. Just slowly come up and come back down into that supported rabbit. for just a couple of breaths. And if you take your palms and place them on the floor, the backs of the hands to the mat, the palms facing up, you get this sort of zero gravity sensation in the shoulders and the arms as they internally rotate. It feels quite relaxing. And then slowly pressing yourself back up for kneeling. And this is just a transition. So we'll take the bolster again right in front here. And we're going to allow the chest to then settle on the bolster. And I say chest, so it's really like the low ribs. And this is just one of my favorites. So as you extend through the arms, this is like a supported sphinx pose. I just want you to pull the belly towards the back body and then readjust. So the first couple times you do this posture, it might not be so comfortable, but eventually you'll get used to the bolster pressing into the chest and it'll start to feel really good. So finding one foot, finding the other foot, and oh my goodness, this is the best version of wheel because it's supported. So the chest is lifted and open. You can focus on keeping the feet nice and even and squeezing the thighs towards one another. Feeling that buoyancy and openness in the chest. And again, so the nose might want to lift up, keep your gaze softly down the bridge of the nose so that the muscles of the face can still relax. And release. So as you release over the bolster, you might want to take an inch or two more forward and settle one palm on top of the other, or the head right to center. Yeah, forehead to center is probably best, but for my sake, I'm going to keep it this way. Yeah, just allowing the spine now to do this sort of turtle back again. It's like rounding graciously over the bolster. Again, so notice when you take a deep breath that the breath gets projected into the back body, into little nooks and crannies and crevices within the lungs that the air just doesn't normally get to. So really take a couple of deep, expansive breaths. Using the bolster pressing against the body and against the breath. So we're using the resistance to our benefit to deepen the flow. And then we'll take the back bend again. So as you press up, little Stevie Wonder there, side to side, get a little longer, and then just lead with your opposite foot. So I'm going to go left this time. And I'm actually going to take my hands outside. So previously the hands were on the inside of the ankles. This time I'm taking them to the outside, and I'm going to flex. So sorry about that. I should have been more detailed. The first time, the palms are facing outward. They're holding the inner ankle, and I'm pointing the toes and squeezing the legs together. That was first version. Second version is the hands a little further down on the ankles, outside, so the thumbs are down, pinkies are up, and then press. You might find that you can go deeper and further with this one. Oh, wow. The bolster just makes it so accessible. I feel like, you know, like the mermaid on the fronts of the pirate ships, like the carved wooden mermaid leading the ship. That's what this one feels like to me. Again, notice what your facial muscles are doing. So if this one's feeling quite challenging, sometimes the facial muscles are also feeling challenged. But if you can soften into those facial muscles, releasing the jaw, releasing the teeth, the gums, the space between the eyebrows, maybe even a gentle smile can help to alleviate whatever is feeling stressful about the posture. And finally releasing. So again, taking the same turtle back shape. Might bring the bolster an inch or two further down the belly and experience again this bliss of having the resistance of the bolster beneath the body, but the expansion of the lungs over the bolster. 3 more breaths. And then slowly pressing up. So child's pose with the bolster. I didn't do that one, but I just want to slide it in here as a really nice option. So in that class I was referring to that I took, my first restorative class that I ever met a bolster, we also did this. And I had never enjoyed child's pose before. It was always feeling really strange to me, like claustrophobic, and I just didn't like it so much. But with a little lift kit underneath my chest, I really, really can bask in child pose here. So again, great time to pause and just linger there if you'd like. I also think it's fun to take a forward bend, again, just after this little practice to feel the difference. You might notice that you can spill further, considerably further than before, maybe finding a bind somewhere with your hands just to contain the energy of the fold. Pressing the tops of the thighs down, pressing just above the knees down, the upper calf, mid-calf, low calf, and finally the back of the ankle and the heel. And pressing it down, just feeling that grounded nature, and then seeing if from that grounded nature can you take a breath and just lengthen the spine over the bolster. This is like an inchworm. Just inchworm the spine ever so gently more forward. Perhaps taking one cheek to the mat and the other, or to the bolster rather. And again, great time to pause. You could make this practice at least 45 minutes or even an hour with maximum pausing. But so finally, we take the Shavasana option with the bolster. So it can be really super nice under the knees here, like so. And you just, I like to put my heels together and allow the knees to splay outward, a bit like a supported Baddha Konasana. So this is a great option. And then if you are ever struggling with Shavasana and you need a little more like lift, and by struggling with Shavasana I mean struggling to not fall asleep. If you always fall asleep, this can be a nice option. A little bit of elevation can sometimes keep you a little more present during Shavasana. So, yeah. Thanks so much for joining, and we'll see you next time.